All right, moving on. This is a story that concerns all of us. We're talking about the Indian Airlines battling safety lapses. Now, several incidents have come to light in the recent past that might be of a very big concern to the flyers and the aviation sector at large. Now, another incident has come to light. Now, what's happened is that pilot of the Air India Express flight from Bahrain to Kochi found an alive bird in the flight deck area mid-flight. And now the DGCA, the regulator, is probing the incident. Now, what really happened? Now, reports suggest that the cabin crew that was inspecting the plane before the flight, in fact, had found a small bird during their inspection. Now, what happened? Instead of removing the bird from the flight, they took a 10 minutes break. After they came back, they did not find the bird and they assumed that the bird is gone and they cleared the plane for flight. But indeed, the bird was still there in the cockpit, in the flight somewhere. And after that, it was revealed and it obviously raises a lot of safety concerns, following which the aviation regulator DGCA has ordered a probe. Another incident, what that has come to light is it involves two major international airlines by Indian carriers, leading to 2 diversions in a day. An Indigo flight heading from Sharjah to Hyderabad diverted to Karachi in Pakistan after pilot reported a glitch. This is the second diversion by an Indian Airlines to Pakistan in a fortnight. Meanwhile, MidAir Express Calicut-Dubai flight diverted to Muscat after burning smell came from a vent in the flight. The crew later checked and no smoke or fire was detected. So these are some incidents that raise several questions, and while the probe is underway, we'll talk about this in much more detail with a special guest who's joining us on the broadcast, Captain Amit Singh, founder Safety Matters Foundation. Captain Amit, thank you so much, sir, for making time and speaking to Mirror Now. When you hear of these incidents quite often, because they are being in the headlines for a very long time now. Just today we've reported 3. What is your first reaction as a flyer that comes to your mind?
As a flyer, everybody's looking after their own safety of the passengers and the crew. So looking at these incidents or occurrences, one would say that the outcome was safe. So nobody was hurt, injured, the aircraft and the crew, everybody was safe. But then looking at the bigger perspective, the whole aim of aviation is to transport passengers and crew from A to B in a safe, efficient and reliable manner. So safety has been achieved, yes, but was the whole process efficient and reliable? That can be questioned. And once we have more information or details about the exact nature of snag, then we can comment on the occurrence. But in general, what the pilots are looking at is there a technical fault in the aircraft or anything which is affecting the safety of the aircraft? So what are the threats on board, inside the aircraft or outside? Because the safest option would be not to fly. But then airline business is such that it has to be a balance between the operational part and safety. So you cannot be too safe or operationally too efficient so that you ignore safety. So there has to be some sort of a balance somewhere. So in case you find a bird inside the cabin, which I think in June last year, there was a bat inside the cabin of an Air India aircraft from Delhi to New York. That's a long haul flight carrying a lot of fuel. Immediately after takeoff or after some time, the aircraft had to turn back to get the bat out by specialists. So that would require dumping of fuel or burning of fuel. So that's a big waste. The system is not reliable or efficient. You may be safe. So in the interest of safety, yes, action has been taken, but there are a lot of occurrences which keep happening, as has been spoken earlier, 30 occurrences a day. A lot of occurrences which need not require a diversion to an alternate airfield, places like Karachi or Muscat, where you do not intend to land. So your idea is to carry your passengers to their destination in a safe, reliable manner. If we don't achieve that, it is due to the analysis, the threat analysis of the crew. And it is not just the pilots, it is the whole crew, the cabin crew, the pilots, and what support they're getting from the ground. When the pilots are in air, they are in constant communication, or they have means of communicating with the dispatch or people on ground there to support the flight, and who are constantly monitoring where the flight has reached, the flight progress, and is there any unserviceability or technical slag, how they can affect the continuation of the flight, and how can they support the flight. So if a snag occurs, like, for example, the Indigo flight, which was coming from Sharjah to Hyderabad, and almost they were abeam Karachi when they diverted to Karachi. So did they declare an emergency? It has to be looked at. When you declare an emergency, you squawk a certain code which tells the ATC that, yes, it is an emergency. They will accord you priority. So if there are too many such diversions purely on the basis of kind of in the name of safety, that to be extra safe, they decided to divert. So then what need for such reliable aircrafts or high-tech aircrafts to be built when for every fault or something, the aircraft has to be diverted? So an analysis, this is more of a training issue,
Right.
How the crew is trained, and they are trained for analyzing the faults. So yes, Indigo has had, this was a neo aircraft, which a couple of years back was in the news for a lot of engine failures because of certain defects in the engine. And everybody thought it was settled. A couple of days back, there was some engine issue, again, an engine failure. And this was again pertaining to an engine or an engine trouble, but this was not exactly that the engine had shut down, but kind of a fault which said that there would be a problem with the engine. So it is all about how you train your crew to analyze the whole situation. Coming back to the Air India Express, pets are allowed in the cabin. Like I said, there is always a threat. It is how you manage the threat. When you carry fuel on board in the wings, that is also a threat. But there are certain technology, and nowadays high-tech aircraft use certain things called fuel inerting system, which reduce the possibility of the fuel catching flames. So when you carry dangerous goods on board, we carry batteries, we carry laptops, phones. So these batteries are also threats.
Right.
There have been fires on board. So crew has been trained to handle all these things. When we carry pets, then there are certain regulations to be complied with. But here the situation was that, firstly, apparently it was ignored. They saw, like if you see a rodent on board, the aircraft has to be fumigated, right? So you have to make sure that certain action has been taken, because in flight, that rodent could cut a wire or something, could become a threat. Here, there was a bird, but it was kind of ignored. And before every departure, there has to be a security check, a safety check, whoever is responsible for that. So that drill has to be carried out. So apparently it was missed, and the bird was ultimately found in the cockpit, the flight deck.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yes, very important points you made there, Captain Namit. And, another important fact that I would like to take from this conversation is that when you spoke about the training of pilots, when you spoke about the training of the staff, do you think a lot has to do with the crisis in the aviation sector that was triggered by the pandemic? Because what we have seen is that it's not just in India, but around the globe, there is this crisis that brewing in the aviation sector, whether it is about overworked pilots, whether it is about their compensation, whether it is about hiring new talent. Do you think there is a link that binds the two?
Well, yes, an incident or an occurrence doesn't happen out of the blue.
Yes.
There is always, it is just a trigger. So something has been brewing for a long time, or when a lot of issues combine together, then that will lead to an incident. So there is always an issue of shortage of crew. When there is a shortage of crew, then the airlines, for the operational requirements, want the crew to be trained as soon as possible. So the crew is basically pushed into training. There are certain shortcuts taken by the training department to push the aircraft, to push the flight crew. So that is one issue, combined with the fatigue, fatigue of the crew. And this was a night flight. So you have something called the circadian low, where your performance goes down. Then you had monsoon weather, heavy weather around that area, starting from Muscat to Karachi. So all these four factors combined could lead to a highly stressful situation, and a small trigger could kind of make a pilot or the crew take a wrong decision.
Right.
Now, they have taken a safer choice. So that is what I would say. So that was the safest choice. If they feel they were fatigued or under stress, so that is the safest choice. Go land at the nearest airport, which is where it is possible to land the aircraft. And that is the end of the safety issue. So now the regulator has to look at what were the issues. Like fatigue has been highlighted world over, but in India, it is least talked about, least the operator or the regulator. The ICAO, the international body, has recommended that the regulator make regulations for fatigue management, but there is a kind of there is a systematic move not to implement, because I think the airlines feel that they will have to give more rest to the crew. But that is based on the understanding of how the safety management and fatigue management system works. So even leading universities around the world have carried out research, and they found that the fatigue is the biggest factor, or the upcoming factor involving safety.
Right.
So that is one thing. The weather has turned like monsoons. Earlier, the monsoon would be very settled weather, just rain. Nowadays, the weather is very violent. Even in monsoon, you'll have thunderstorms and lightning strikes. So the whole weather pattern has changed. And our Met studies, even for pilots, hasn't been updated. So all this has to, there has to be a lot of research work done. Unfortunately, India does not have those institutions in aviation which can lead to such sort of research and come up with newer methodologies. We still adopt the Western methodology of training. So even those people have updated, but we still follow the archaic systems.
Okay. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Captain Amit Singh, for those valuable insights on this story that concerns everyone as far as these airlines are concerned. We'll have to wait and watch as to what the DGCA does, the regulator does, as far as these numerous incidents that have come to light.